Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Monday night, August the 26th. Good to have you guys in for another episode of the Prime Time program. We have a trade, ladies and gentlemen. An unexpected trade to be sure, and a deal that I think Titans fans are going to be pretty satisfied with ahead of roster cutdown day tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time. So obviously we're going to do two different versions of the roster cut show. We've got today ahead of the bulk of the roster cuts, though there have been about 10 different transactions that have been made. And then tomorrow we'll have a reaction to the initial 53-man roster, because the deadline will be at 3 p.m. The teams will have to have their roster set. That'll be the initial roster. So some things could be still fluid that we could talk about as the week progresses. But in particular, you have today the trade of Malik Willis to the Green Bay Packers. So we're going to get into this together. Cat Nelson says, glad we got something for him. Literally a cat, Cat Nelson on YouTube. Love to see it. But yes, there is a lot of, I would say, positive feedback on the idea that you were able to get anything at all from Malik Willis with a late trade offer from the Green Bay Packers that ends up being for a 7th-round pick, but still gets you additional draft capital that you can turn in to something else potentially down the line. Benjamin Buck says, why would you trade a future Hall of Famer? Listen, man, I know that the discourse around Malik has been a bit exhausting in a lot of different ways, right? Did he get a fair shot? Is he in the right kind of system? Is he capable of playing the quarterback position at a higher level than we've seen him play? On and on and on and on for the past 3 off seasons. And to his credit, he's continued to make progress, but that's what we're here to break down. So we will get into the trade. We will get into cut day, specifically some unexpected stuff that we might see, or some unexpected stuff that we might be able to guess about. We'll bring Bert in for in case you missed it, and he'll get us updated on the rest, and we'll have a great time doing it throughout the course of the evening. Before we get started, need you guys to share the broadcast around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Wherever you are spending your evening with us, we appreciate your participation. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. I'm doing it right now on Twitter. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That is in the bottom left. And if you are on YouTube or Twitch, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell a friend to do the same. We would be grateful for you that way. Chosen says, I was shocked that we got anything for Willis. Rand got us a pick for him. This was the right decision. Well, Rand, obviously, as the general manager, would be very much involved in the trading of any player. But I would also be curious to know how much, and Bert brought this up earlier, how much Chad Brinker, the former assistant GM under Rand Carthon, now the president of football ops, who spent, I want to say, 13 years with the Green Bay Packers before coming to Tennessee. I wonder how much Chad Brinker also had to do in the dealing of Malik Willis, given his connections up there. So we'll work our way through the details of this and why it's a win-win for both sides. Let's go ahead and get the show started first, though. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the wonderful people at Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information. TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch. Your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated at TrueMav Fitness. And Zen Sports, where betting just got better. Plug in the promo code ATOZTN and get up to $100 on your no danger first wager in the Zen Sports app. All right, so Malik Willis has a really nice performance against the New Orleans Saints in preseason game number 3. And Brian Callahan talked about this last night when we were doing the post-game press conference with him. By the way, apologies that there was no primetime show last night. I ended up having to change my flight to get home right about 7:20. By the time I got back to the house, it was too late to do primetime, and I had some writing to do. So we figured better to actually wrote an article about Malik Willis and the viability of trading him, cutting him, or keeping him. And ironically enough, we talk about Malik Willis today now that the primetime show is back. But with Willis, he had a solid performance to get this team in position to go out there and win a game. In fact, I would argue, given the circumstance, understand it's a fourth quarter of a preseason game. And I know that it will be discounted because he's playing against threes as well. But for Malik Willis to go out there and score not one, but two answering touchdown drives to get the lead twice in the game and ultimately hang on for a win is a big deal. Malik finished the game not as their leading passer. Ironically enough, Will Levis, who played 2 series, was the leading passer, 7 of 8 for 118. Then Mason Rudolph, 11 of 15 for 114. Malik only threw 4 passes, and 2 of them were for touchdowns, 3 of 4 for 51 and 2 touchdowns. He had the highest quarterback rating, obviously, in a smaller sample size of work, and it didn't start well, right? He took the 2 sacks initially. I wouldn't blame him specifically for the sacks. I'd put those more on the offensive line. Rock says he was always upset. Talking about Malik Willis, says he was never fired up, never showed any leadership, and the guy never even smiled once since being in the league, and was always bad. I think that is completely incorrect, obviously. And, how would you know for just watching him on preseason television broadcasts and things like that? Because I'm going to assume, Rock, that you've never actually been around that person in 3 years that he's been in the league. You don't actually know that human being. And I'm not going to pretend to know him super well, but I've obviously spent a lot of time around him these past 3 years. And I can tell you that's very much not the case. Malik Willis has an excellent attitude. He's very much respected. And just because it didn't work out here, he's getting another opportunity for a team that wanted him and a team that's going to make him the backup to Jordan Love. Matt LaFleur, who, of course, Titans fans know is an offensive coordinator here before taking the head coaching job, and has been hugely successful there in helping to develop quarterbacks and manufacture offense. He thinks Malik Willis is worth a shot, so much so to give up draft capital for him when you knew he was probably going to get cut anyway. Now, you maybe not were going to get him in the waiver order if you're the Green Bay Packers, so that's why you ultimately end up making this move, and Tennessee is the beneficiary of that. But I think that's completely ridiculous to make a bunch of assumptions about a human being who obviously you don't know, and I can tell that you don't know him based on the way that you're talking about him, because that's very much an inaccurate reading of that particular player. Derek says, Buck cherry picking the dumbasses in the comments again. Well, yeah, I mean, listen, it's unfortunate that the dumbass comments, I'm not going to call that person, Rock? I'm not going to call him personally a dumbass, but I will say, as we always do, not to personally attack people, but you are displaying the behavior of a dumbass if you make assumptions about people that you do not know. So that's what it is. So I think that there's a lot of this stuff that you have to work through, and it was unclear as to whether they were going to get any legitimate offers for Malik Willis, but ultimately Green Bay ends up making the call, and they do a deal for a 7th-round pick to acquire Malik Willis, the former 3rd-round pick of the Titans, at Liberty. And it was always a complicated situation for Malik, right? Because when he got drafted here, it made a lot of sense. You had the additional 3rd-round pick, right? NPF was their first 3rd-round selection that year. And then Malik Willis was drafted. There was some talk about Malik Willis potentially being a 1st-round pick that year. Obviously, that did not bear itself out, nor should it have, given how far behind he actually was when he arrived at the NFL level. And then when you looked at Malik Willis' situation, it made sense for the Titans to draft him. Tannehill, nearing the end of his contract, needing a viable option on a team that was at the time in 2022 or heading into that 2022 season, viewed as competitive. They started off 7-3 before the bottom fell out, and John Robinson was fired, and everything went the way that it did en route to 7 straight losses that season. But Malik Willis never should have had to play in his rookie year, and did, because of the injury to Tannehill, and then gets passed over again when they draft Will Levis in the 2nd round, to where he's immediately leapfrogged after Tannehill gets hurt again last season by Will Levis, who gets hurt in the preseason, ends up starting the year as the 3, but ends up becoming the starting quarterback here down the stretch, goes 3-6. Malik gets a little bit of play time in Baltimore, and it's a mess, right? Because Tannehill gets injured there. Malik Willis goes in behind a terrible offensive line. The Baltimore defense is eating quarterbacks alive for a living anyway, and Malik Willis, in very, very limited duty, takes 4 sacks, and almost all 4 sacks could be attributed to the quarterback, which was unfortunate. But you saw him get better year over year, even if the progress was incremental, And even if the progress was insufficient, that's the thing. The player can have improved and it still not be good enough. And that's ultimately what the case was here. So the question that I want to ask you is this: your Two Rivers Ford take in the comment section, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Fair or foul? A seventh round pick for Malik Willis to go to the Green Bay Packers. Let me know how you feel about the compensation for the player. We'll talk about it together. I will remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by Two Rivers Ford, your Ford Bronco headquarters and the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Ford Broncos are badass vehicles. You see them all over, not just Middle Tennessee, but all over the country since they brought the Bronco back. And Two Rivers, as I mentioned, is your Bronco headquarters. Their non-commissioned sales team is there to educate you, inform you, let you test drive the vehicles, even if you're not in the market to do so. They'll set up a test drive for you just to enjoy the Bronco experience and try it out for yourself. So go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information. I've actually got the preseason game on TV again right now. I threw it on the DVR earlier to kind of refresh myself on Malik's snaps specifically. Spencer Rattler, by the way, acquitted himself pretty nicely. I don't know if he's going to push Carr at all, but Carr did not play yesterday in New Orleans. It was Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler down the stretch. But there was some interesting quarterback play in this game, and I thought all three Titans quarterbacks played well given the circumstances that they were up against. So the question becomes, fair or foul? A seventh-round pick for Malik Willis. Mitchell Austin says, fair. We would have cut him and received nothing. Joe Moore says they are lucky that they got anything. Frederick, I'm not seeing anybody say foul. Chosen, Demetrius, Dylan, Anthony, all saying fair in the comment section. Not a single one of you feels that the transaction was not enough. Given what Malik Willis is, Skip Cutrone on Facebook Live says it's a steal for us. Was getting cut anyway. I think that Rock says it's fair because he isn't good. Buck knows him well and his great leadership qualities. Listen, this was a starting quarterback in college. This was a starting quarterback in the NFL, whether he should have been or not. But again, Rock, you're saying it tongue in cheek, and I understand. But you don't know anything about this person. And the person in question is absolutely capable of being the kind of leader that you require, even if it's not screaming and red-faced like Will Levis is. Malik Willis has the attributes, the qualities to be a leader in the huddle, if not the ability itself to perform at the NFL level, which is the thing that we're in question here. I don't have any questions about the dude's leadership. What I do question is his ability to be even a backup in the NFL, because, of course, famously, he has been beat out to even be the backup in every year other than the year that he was drafted here and they had no other choice. And honestly, Logan Woodside would have been the better backup quarterback option, but they spent draft capital on him and they weren't going to keep Woodside on the roster with Malik. So you understand the situation there. Anyway, Jackie Holbert says, Buck, find a Packers fan and ask them fair or foul on Malik. Yeah, B-Friend says, I said foul, damn it. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. What I ultimately come away with here, and in fact, I'm going to let you hear from Malik Willis because we talked to him last night in the locker room after he led that comeback win. And they were two of the best passes I've seen him throw, the 34-yard rope to Bryce Oliver, and then the really nice timing on the slant pattern, the 5-yard slant route that he hit Bryce Oliver with for the second touchdown, and ultimately the touchdown that won the game. And remember, just a week removed from throwing what should have been or what could have been a game-losing interception against the Seattle Seahawks. Had he gotten another opportunity, who knows what Malik Willis would have done with it, but Mason Rudolph was the one who ultimately finished out that game. I have thoughts on this, and you're going to hear from Malik Willis here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Go to TrueMathFitness.com. Your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated, just the best facility, coaching staff, and training programs for any level of fitness right here, conveniently located in downtown Nashville. TrueMathFitness.com. For that first workout free, check out any number of their membership options and sign up for personal training, group fitness classes, or just be a member and hang out, work out in their open gym as you please. TrueMathFitness.com for more information and that first workout free. Okay, so Malik Willis in the locker room last night from the Superdome. This was video courtesy of Teron Davenport.
Awesome. Everybody all around, offense, defense, special teams, did all they could to pull this one out and just see how close these games get. And I think it's awesome we finished the way we did.
Connected twice with Bryce late. How much have you seen him improve? What's the connection like with him?
I think it's been awesome, even just from the spring, just seeing him grow and just absorb the offense, absorb the information that coach has been getting across to all of us. And I think it's just been great to see him grow and make plays.
How much you feel like you've improved your third camp and under new coaching staff?
I think I'm just trying to take it day by day and continue to just work hard and try to handle any mishaps and learn from it and just continue to try to grow each day.
And you've been through this before. What's your kind of mindset now as the organization kind of heads towards some tough decisions?
It's out of my hands. I mean, more than anything, just controlling what I can control as far as all that goes and just try to do my best to put some good stuff on tape.
And that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what he did. He put the best effort that he could on tape. He went out and won a football game. He did everything that he was asked to do. We talked to Brian Callahan about this in the postgame last night. And he said, it absolutely affects the decision on what they did with Malik, seeing the way that he carried himself, seeing the progress that he's made. And again, another offensive-minded head coach in Matt LaFleur said, yeah, we'll take him. And Schefter tweeted this out. I'm curious to see if this is, and I'm not questioning Adam Schefter's reporting or anything like this, but when Schefter broke the news, because it was Adam Schefter that first reported the news, he said that they were trading for Malik Willis to be the backup quarterback to Jordan Love, which again is a step in the right direction for Malik Willis. That is progress, and it was always going to be a slow burn with Malik. The circumstances got out of hand here. It ultimately put him in a bad position. It probably hindered him more than it helped him. And now ultimately he gets the opportunity to continue to extend his NFL career and learn under a coach who I think is also from one coaching staff in Brian Callahan's that's very quarterback centric to another in Matt LaFleur's that I think is going to continue to build upon the progress that he's made. It's about as good a scenario for both sides as could be had. Ultimately, would you like better compensation for a former third-round pick? Yeah, I'm sure that you would like better compensation. But for me, I never looked at Malik as like the surefire solution behind Tannehill, right? And this was before ultimately Malik even played. A third-round pick on a quarterback in almost every other circumstance is a flyer. And the flyer here didn't work out. But it worked out enough for you to get trade compensation out of it, and it worked out enough for Malik to continue his NFL career. So obviously, I'm on the side of fair for a seventh-round pick for Malik Willis, given what he is at this stage of his career. And that for Malik, I just think that expectations got so skewed because of people's obsessions with backup quarterbacks, and in particular, how unhappy people were with the quarterback situation here heading into that draft for Malik, right? That was after the Ryan Tannehill Cincinnati implosion, the 3-interception game, where it looked like, you guys, I said this to Tyler Boyd the other day, it looked like a bomb hit that stadium when the Bengals and Tyler Boyd and Joe Burrow and Brian Callahan came into Nissan Stadium and beat the Titans as the number 1 overall seed. I've never seen a fan base look that shook in 8 years covering this particular team and covering it for you guys as a fan base. It was pretty catastrophic. So Malik getting drafted, the draft after the Tannehill implosion, I think heightened expectations. Then when Tannehill got hurt and Malik Willis, they went out there and won a game in Houston with basically Derrick Henry and Malik not having to attempt a forward pass in the second half. I think that at least it made Titans fans feel like, all right, at least you can hide this guy with Derrick Henry while you bring him along. And then when the progress wasn't being made to the point where you were losing games and you really, really needed one at the end, and Josh Dobbs did his damnedest to try and bail you out, they had to make a decision that was probably not an easy one to make, saying, all right, Malik, you're not good enough to be the backup. You got to sit down. We're going to get Dobbs. We're going to try and get in the postseason with this thing. Ultimately, and you can blame the officiating if you want to, Titans come up short in Jacksonville, and we know how all that plays out. But it was a very difficult circumstance that Malik came here with, and expectations on him that were probably expedited based on how the Tannehill thing played out. none of us really expected the Tannehill thing to go the way that it did and how far it fell off. Right. I mean, just generally, how far the roster fell off from 21 to 22 and how much the quarterbacks were having to make up for it. Malik Willis just, wasn't able to do it. Levis wasn't able to do it. Tannehill wasn't able to do it, right? This was something that 3 different quarterbacks over 2 years had the opportunity to try and elevate, and Levis did the best job with it than any of the 3 of them did. And still, it was good enough to be 3-6 under Will Levis. So that's kind of where we're at with the Malik Willis. So I'm obviously in the party of fair. I think that most people would probably agree. It's a really difficult circumstance for Malik that ultimately I think has it's not an ending, but a good solution given the amount of different circumstances. They could have cut him. He would have gotten claimed off waivers, and the Titans could have gotten nothing for him. And instead, Packers further down in the waiver order saying, no, we're not going to take a chance that he wouldn't make it to us in the waiver claim order. We'll go ahead and give you a 7th for him and just make sure that we can avoid the waiver process all the way to begin with. Eddie Gray says, and Vrabel staff couldn't develop players. Eddie, there's a lot of fair criticism to that. Now, do I think that Mike Vrabel's staff couldn't develop a single player? No. I thought Rob Moore did an excellent job with A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is not the player that he is now without Rob Moore's guidance. I think that Mike Vrabel, on the positions that he knew, you can talk about whether he was over his skis, getting involved with every position, but in the coaching of defense and defensive line, the technical stuff that's required and helping players understand the rules, I do think that there was development there. Do I think that they were the best developmental coaching staff? No. There are too many examples of them not being able to do stuff. And again, the roster was put together poorly, so I can't put it all on Mike Vrabel's coaching staff, but there was a deficiency when it came to developing younger players. And frankly, an impatience. This I think is the most fair criticism of Mike Vrabel and his coaching. Well, Mike Vrabel as a head coach and the way that he approached this stuff. There was a level of impatience that you would rather just go out and grab a Buster Screen or a Dontrell Hilliard or who else was another example of a veteran free agent like that? A plug-and-play type of off-the-couch vet, Deontay Foreman, that it was better to work with veteran players because they were quicker to pick things up than to try and develop younger players. And I think that too often they got to the point where they're saying, all right, just go out and get a vet. Go out and what did Vrabel call them? Stray cats and stuff like that. Just go out and get a vet. We don't have time to mess around with the rookies. Let's get the vets up to speed. It'll take less time and we'll go. That, I think, is the most fair criticism, is a level of impatience with that. But I don't think that there were real, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. Every coaching staff comes with deficiencies. We don't know yet what Brian Callahan's are going to be, right? This is all still the honeymoon phase. But there were moments where Vrabel, I think, got to the point where he was just, and this is how coaches are wired, right? And I don't know how Mike would respond to this, but you're just so focused on winning the next game that you're going to do everything possible to win that next game. And if you feel like these things are taking away from the opportunity to win the next game and you think you can do it better with a guy off the street, then do that and move forward. And they had success with it, right? That's what the whole 2021 season was. All right, let's grab this guy. Let's grab that guy. Let's try and survive this season and route to the number 1 seed. And it worked. It was much less successful. And their record in 1-score games flipped very, very quickly when they tried to do that over the course of the 2 years following. It was just not sustainable the way that they went about it. And there was a variety of different reasons that was so. But I do think that a lack of development under Mike Vrabel's coaching staff is fair criticism when you look at how many different players washed out, even if those players were insufficient to begin with because John Robinson and that front office made poor decisions in the final 3 years of his tenure here. Anyway, cut day. Let's talk about it. Surprises to make the roster. The next time we do this show tomorrow, obviously we'll have news throughout the course of the radio show tomorrow, and we're looking forward to that from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. But the next time we do primetime, we'll have the initial 53-man roster. The deadline is at 3 p.m. tomorrow. So while we talk about this right now, I want you to give me one player who would be your biggest surprise to make the roster, not to get cut, but the biggest surprise to make the Titans roster on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Let me know of all the different players that you've seen, all the different reserves, 2s and 3s, free agents, UDFAs, journeymen, guys who have been here for the past couple of years but looking for a new opportunity under a new coaching staff. Let me know in the comment section who your biggest surprise to make the Titans roster will be. We'll talk about it together right after I remind you. David Lee says, I don't remember Titan Golden Tate. He was on your practice squad. You guys kept begging for him and not understanding that he could not play football at all anymore. But he was here, definitely. It was during that 21 season. It was en route to the number 1 overall seed because the wide receiver room with Julio, with AJ, they could not stay healthy for the life of them. That was the ascent of Nick Westbrook-Akina, a situation that he has yet to relinquish. He continues to be old reliable. Teron Davenport called him a Honda Accord yesterday in the press box, and it made me laugh out loud. But surprise to make the Titans roster. Let me know in the comment section, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. I'm seeing a lot of nominees for Weaver. Weaver is an interesting one, and we can dive into those things together right after I remind you that Primetime is made possible by Zen Sports. Promo code ATOZTN gets you up to $100 on your no danger first wager. College football was back over the weekend. Now I didn't win a single bet. I'll be honest with you. I went 0-3 this weekend in my college football bets. I don't think a single team that I bet on, well, I know a single team. There was not a single team that played college football this weekend that covered, as a matter of fact, it felt like. But certainly not in the games that I bet on. But college football betting is back. NFL betting will soon be back. Promo code ATOZTN gets you in on all the action. Terms and conditions do apply. Must be 21 plus and in the state of Tennessee to bet at Zen Sports. Call 1-800-889-9789 if you have a gambling problem. So, surprise to make the Titans roster. Amar says the rookie UDFA tight end DMR. That's not a surprise. I'm not going to say the dude's a roster lock because he's still an undrafted rookie free agent, but that would be the least surprising bottom of the roster make of any of it. I can't remember the exact quote from Brian Callahan's press conference today, but he basically said that he's a model DMR, is a model of how to make an active roster as an undrafted rookie free agent. So that guy's not a surprise even in the least bit. And certainly and I'm not saying that you haven't been paying attention, Amar, but like the dude has just made plays consistently, not just in the preseason game, but he's been doing it at practice. So that would not be surprising in the least. Let's see. A biggest surprise for me, says Gary on Facebook Live, would be Kearis Jackson. Now, I'm curious to know the status of Kearis Jackson's knee because he had missed time for injury. And I do believe, I'm going to double check this in the game book from yesterday, but I do believe that Kearis Jackson did not have a snap. Let me double check. Did not play yesterday. Yeah, Kearis Jackson did not play yesterday, nor did Mason Kinsey. So I'd be curious to know how long-term his knee situation is. It would be something that would be interesting because Jaquan Jackson is obviously going to be their punt returner. He's going to be the backup slot, it seems like. I would be shocked if Kyle Phillips is on this roster. I think some people are probably – Tom Wishaw is the only person that I've seen say Kyle Phillips would be a surprise to make the roster. I would be shocked if he ends up being here, but there's always something that's shocking on the initial 53-man roster. Does DMR play special teams, says Eric? Yes, he absolutely does. He's one of the 53 best players on the roster. He's making the team. I think that ultimately there is a lot of this stuff. There is a lot of this stuff that for different guys at different positions in any other year, I do believe this player would make the roster. And I do still think there's an outside chance that he does make the roster. Billy Word says Trey Avery. Trey Avery, I think, is going to be your fifth corner. Now, I know many of you are not happy about that. But I would be surprised to see Trey Avery not on this roster. He continues to get starts and snaps over, every other corner but Jarvis Brownlee Jr. So believe he's your 5th corner off the depth chart right now. We'll see. It would not be surprising to me if he made the roster. I understand based on what you guys have seen why you would consider it surprising that they would keep him. But Bryce Oliver of Youngstown State, UDFA, 2 touchdowns yesterday. You can argue that him and Malik Willis were the MVPs of that win. Bryce Oliver as the 7th receiver, if they keep 7, again, it's an initial roster, so it continues to be fluid, continues to be adaptable. If he ends up on the initial 53-man roster, it probably would be a surprise, but it shouldn't be that big of a surprise because the guy is really, really good.
Hey, first of all, I want to thank God for this opportunity for sure. And, it's the last one, so the coach emphasized this week, though, just to finish, you know what I'm saying, leaving it all out there. A lot of the older guys talked to me for the game, like Nick Westbrook, told me just to leave it all on the field, and that's what I did.
We talked before about that connection with Malik. It showed today. What is it about that?
I mean, like I iterated before to you, I tell Malik all throughout the week, man, just like, if I'm in there, I got you, man, I'm going to make the play. I think he's embodied that. He trusts me in the shown.
That ability to show the late hands on that first touchdown, is that something that you work on? It comes naturally? How did you get to that point?
No, that's actually something that I work on during the offseason. I haven't, it's kind of like I play receiver, so it's kind of like natural, but it's something you have to I work on too throughout the offseason and stuff.
Yeah, I asked that because not all receivers, it's literally like the last second you put your hands out there, not all receivers.
Yeah, it's definitely a reaction for sure. I think I remember, DB actually had, his hand on the ball. I was just trying so hard, to not let it go, so. Yeah.
That is Bryce Oliver, pride of Youngstown State, the Youngstown State Penguins, I learned yesterday, their mascot, an excellent mascot. I don't know for sure if he's going to make it, right? I think it's more viable now that the quarterbacks are gone, or now that Malik Willis is traded to the Green Bay Packers. I do think it's more viable for them to keep a 7th wide receiver, especially given a 7th wide receiver that plays special teams. He's like their 3rd string X, right? If it goes Hopkins, Treylon Burks, then Bryce Oliver's the 3rd. And I think that him in particular, he's shown enough and is skilled enough that in the last 2 years, I think he would have been a roster log. He comes in a year where they actually have depth at wide receiver for the first time in a long, long time, arguably as deep a wide receiver room as they have ever had. So from my standpoint, I look at this and say, Bryce Oliver is a 7th wide receiver. It's going to be specific to special teams, but he has shown enough to at least make the initial 53-man roster to me. I think some people would think of it as a surprise. I think most of you who have watched this would probably not think it's a surprise. So we will see what they ultimately end up doing. It's going to be fascinating. Roster cut day is terrible, right? Because it's one of the biggest mass layoffs in any workforce anywhere, where you go from 90 to 53 on 32 NFL clubs. Expanded practice squads have helped mitigate some of the losses there, but it's also a very exciting day. You can't imagine how many million different things are going on at every NFL facility right now, not just the Titans. And they have legitimate depth that makes these decisions harder right now, which is a good place to be in if you're a Titans fan, to see improved depth on the roster to make those decisions at corner, at wide receiver, at tight end. I was going to say running back, but it doesn't really seem like that. It's going to be that tough a decision at running back. Tight end, though, for sure. DMR squeaking in there as the 4th tight end, I think, is more likely than not, which to his credit is not something that would be easy to do for an offense that doesn't really run a lot of 2 tight end sets, or at least didn't in Cincinnati. We'll see what they do here now that Brian Callahan's in Tennessee. So that would be my biggest surprise to make the 53-man roster. Chase Hill says Chance Campbell frees up a spot, right? Yeah, but you still have to find another linebacker. Michael Jones, who they added last week after what was the corresponding transaction with Michael Jones? They put Marlon Davidson on injured reserve, and they signed the Abdullah kid, the number 78, the defensive lineman. They also added Michael Jones, the linebacker. I know that there is some rumblings out there about trading for the starting linebacker for the Rams, Ernest Jones, the former South Carolina player. But I would be surprised. We'll see. They have a number of options at their disposal, but with roster cutdown day, I think they'd be able to find a Chance Campbell replacement as he would be your third off-ball linebacker in that situation. I just don't think it makes sense to trade draft capital for a starting caliber player when they seem pretty set with Gibbons and Murray. Could you improve on Gibbons? Yes, you could, but he's not. I don't think he's as bad as Titans fans want to make him in their heads just because he was a part of they weren't even a bad defense last year. They were a middle of the pack defense last year. And it's awful, awful, awful for Chance Campbell. I really, really hate that for him. I hate it for Kyle Phillips, Chance Campbell, Marlon Davidson, guys who have done well, who have performed well enough, but whose bodies have just failed them in a big spot. Mike McCown says Cedric Gray to IR. I had not seen that. I don't know that that's the plan right now. Brian Callahan was not. I don't believe he was asked a question today about Cedric Gray, but I will go back and review the transcript. Gray is somebody who was buried on the depth chart anyway prior to the injury, so I think he's pretty behind the eight ball. I wouldn't expect him to be a contributor this year. Thought Gibbons was in protocol. No, Otis Reese is in protocol, and Luke Gifford is the other linebacker in protocol. Naloge, forgive me, is that how I pronounce it? Says bring back Monty Rice. Monty Rice, who made a nice play yesterday against the Titans to force a fumble on Jabari Small. Titans legend Monty Rice. But for Monty, and it's a different coaching staff. Monty Rice is an interesting cat, and I'm glad to see that he's latched on in New Orleans. We'll see if he makes it through their roster cuts because he was playing well into the fourth or late into the second half in the preseason game yesterday. But he's not a good enough player for some of the. I'm not going to say. I mean, there were some issues with Monty while he was here that would be difficult to attribute to anything other than demeanor. Like Monty's a different kind of cat. I had various experiences with him. I think everybody in the media corps had various experiences with him, and he was not here for that long of a time. And he was not a significant enough contributor to be as much of a headache as it felt like Monty Rice could be at times. Again, new coaching staff, that may be different. But I don't know that they would be interested in bringing him back here. And I don't know that he's going to make it in New Orleans, but we'll see. To his credit, he is at least back on another NFL roster. Does Monty want to deal with Titans media again, says Demetrius? Well, I mean, he doesn't have a choice, right? Like if you don't, that's part of their paycheck, right? Fans ultimately fund a part of players' paycheck. But the real money that they make comes from media rights deals. I don't know, nor would I disclose the exact amount that, for example, my radio station, 104.5 The Zone, pays the Titans for the rights to their game broadcast. But you know who's the beneficiary of that? The players and the coaches. TV rights, Amazon money, Netflix money now this year. The media rights and why these guys have to speak to us as often as they do are the reason that the paychecks are so huge now in the NFL at the very top of the market. Not everybody makes that kind of money, but still, the main amount of profit from the NFL comes from the media rights deals. So they have no choice but to deal with us, because I'm not going to say that we are the largest percentage of their paycheck, because obviously I am not myself contributing to their paycheck, but our organizations as media members, as media entities, we contribute to the financial windfall that NFL players stand to make because of the rights deals that are done and how crazy expensive NFL rights are. So they have a certain obligation that they have to fulfill in speaking to the media. So it's not really about whether he wants to deal with us or not. If he's here, he's going to deal with us. That's how it goes. So, all right. Major Key says, where's Jon Brown? Jon's been out of the league for a couple of years, man. Ever since that, I want to say it was an elbow injury. Because Jon is still under 30, if I remember correctly. But he when he lost his job to David Long, he fell off pretty quickly, and he did not last very long with I think they were already in Vegas by the time he went to the Raiders, but he did not last long with the Raiders either. That happened Happened pretty quickly. Okay, so let's move on and let's welcome Bert in with In Case You Missed It. We'll see what he has to update us on the latest from what we may have missed right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com. Don't sell without the intel edge that only the Ashton team can provide. Go to GaryAshton.com, the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators. All right, Bert, what do you got?
What do you got? You told me you had something planned for this.
Well, I perpetually stay carrying you on my back. You're just going to ride my coattails to the end of time, it seems. And so for your In Case You Missed It, I had to give you a play because apparently you weren't paying attention to the play that the rest of America saw Thomas Odukoya make as an international player on the Titans roster.
I was being facetious. Of course, I came up with a plan. Of course, I have something to talk about. I don't know why I'm so foggy today. It looks kind of hazy in here. That's kind of crazy.
Breathing too close to your camera.
Don't. You didn't have to. How about cuss? You didn't have to choke slam me like that. You did not have to choke slam me like that.
Well, if you didn't ask me to carry your segment, the one thing I asked you to do during the week, then you wouldn't be in that position.
Yada yada yada. As roster cutdowns come about, there's a lot of discussion going on. How can players help on their respective side of the balls or special teams? And one guy that you mentioned probably helped himself as much as anybody did was Thomas Odukoya. On the, I believe it was a 106-yard return by Samson Nakua, who is Puka Nakua's brother. He ran 162 total yards to stop the touchdown play. We can watch it from the broadcast angle first.
And does he have enough? Not this time. It's going to be returned. It is going to be returned. And put it around the corner. Nakua breaks tackles. Can he make it to the sideline? He's got a chance. Can he beat the lineman? Will he get there?
Don't tell me he stepped out on the 2.
He's out. It looks like he's out of the 3.
Don't tell me he stepped out on the 3-yard line.
Really on the field is the runner stepped out of bounds at the 3-yard line.
That's tough.
And that I would be heartbroken if I was Samson Nakua. And to not just Odukoya's credit, who ultimately ended up making the play, NPF is hauling ass there for a big fella. Like, that is not an easy play to try and make. He took a bad angle and ultimately couldn't get there. But there's some good hustle from a couple of different players on teams there.
It's just tough for him because they're kind of log jammed at tight end right now. You got 2 draft picks, you got a veteran, and then you got somebody who shows a little more on offense than he does.
Well, the toughest thing for him is that David Martin Robinson has emerged, because I think there could have been a path to Odukoya being this. They have an international roster exemption for him. So it's not like, because he's been a part of the organization now. This, I want to say, is his 3rd or 4th year being a part of the organization as an international exemption player from the Netherlands. So they still can use that international exemption. We thought this year might be an opportunity for him to get on the active roster and have that exemption removed and be an actual NFL football player during the regular season. But DMR seems to have surpassed him not very quickly. It's been a progression, but to his credit, he's made enough plays.
And to his credit, there is a rule change within the international player pathway this year. If they do claim the exemption for him, previously, he could not have been signed to the active roster or play for any team that season. He would just be a training player, right? They would just be trying to see how far along they could bring him. But starting in 2024, that player with the exemption can be elevated for 3 games. So even if he does get tagged with their international player exemption, he would be able to be elevated 3 times in the Titan season, whether that's for special teams, if Nick Vanette has an injury, they need another blocker, anything like that. So if he doesn't make the roster, there is still a pathway for him to play this year.
Final question before I relieve you of your obligations. Do you need me to call the fire department to your home? Oh no, that's going to do it for us tonight here on the Primetime program. We appreciate you guys hanging out here with us. Bert and I will be back at it tomorrow. We'll have a great time doing it. Roster cut day tomorrow. It will be unfortunate. It will be exciting. It will be all of the things that roster cut day always is. By the way, we did a really fun show today from the Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt today, and Jeff Fisher did the whole second hour with us. He was excellent on roster cuts, on how much preseason management has changed, on the McNair documentary, told a bunch of stories that didn't make it to air on the McNair documentary. You can go check that out on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube channel. If you're watching us on YouTube here, you can go subscribe to The Zone and watch our radio show live from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone, where we'll be reacting live to all the roster cuts. And then tomorrow night, we can come back here together on primetime and react to the roster cuts as well. Have a great rest of your night. Tomorrow morning, talk to you on the radio show. And until then.
Go home! Go home! Go home! You're embarrassing Nashville! Go home!